Now today we are going to see the gear methodology. So let us see first the introduction. So gears are mainly used for transmission of power or motion from one shaft to another shaft without slip. Okay, so these are positive in action and it provides constant velocity ratio. Now let us see further the terminology of gear tooth. So first let us see the addendum. So addendum is nothing but the radial distance from the pitch of circle, the radial distance from pitch circle to the tip of the tooth. Okay, it is nothing but the radial distance between pitch circle and the tip of the tooth. Its value is equal to 1 module. Okay, now next we will see the clearance. So what is the clearance? It is the radial distance from the top of the top of a tooth to the bottom of a mating tooth space when the teeth are symmetrically engaged, and its standard value is 0.157 m. Okay, now let us see next dedendum. Dedendum is nothing but the radial distance between or radial distance from the pitch circle to the bottom of the tooth space. Okay, this is called as the dedendum. Okay, now let us see the next, that is face of the tooth. It is the part of the tooth surface which is above the pitch surface. Okay, and flank, it is the part of the tooth surface which is lying below the pitch surface. Okay, the part above the pitch surface is face and the part of the tooth surface which lies below the pitch surface is called as a flank. Now let us see the tooth thickness. So tooth thickness, that is the thickness of the tooth measured along the pitch circle. Okay, measured along the pitch circle, this is called as a tooth thickness. Now let us see the hole depth. Hole depth is nothing but addendum plus dedendum. This is called as a hole depth, and working depth is called as a addendum plus dedendum minus clearance. Okay, this is called as a working depth. What is it? It is addition of addendum, dedendum and subtraction of the clearance from this summation. Then it is called as a working depth. Now let us see the pitch circle. In every pair of gears in mesh, the two plane wheels in contact are assumed to exist, which are known as pitch circle. Okay, here you can see two pairs of the pair is there. Okay, in pair of gears in mesh, the two plane wheels in contact are assumed to exist, which are known as pitch circle. And pitch point, it is nothing but the point of contact between the circle, the pitch circle of two gears. Okay, here you can see the contact point. Okay, it is the pitch point, which is nothing but the point of contact between the pitch circle of two gears in mesh. Now next we are going to see the circular pitch. So what is circular pitch? It is nothing but the arc distance measured around the pitch circle, okay, from a point on one tooth to a corresponding point on the adjacent tooth. Okay, this is called as a circular pitch. So what is circular pitch? It is the arc distance measured along the pitch circle from a point on one tooth to a corresponding point on the adjacent tooth. Okay, and the formula of this circular pitch is pi into d divided by t. Okay, so here d is nothing but pitch circle diameter, t is nothing but number of teeth, m is nothing but a module. So here we can see the circular pitch. Okay, now what is the module? So module is nothing but the linear distance in mm that each tooth of the gear would occupy if the gear teeth were spaced along the pitch diameter, or you can say in other words that is module is nothing but the ratio of pitch circle diameter to number of teeth. That is nothing but m is equal to d by t, which is the formula of module. Okay, and diametral pitch is the reciprocal of this module. That means it is the number of teeth per unit length of the pitch circle diameter. Okay, module and diametral pitch, this is a vice versa. Okay, now let us see what is the backlash. Backlash, okay, the diameter through which a gear can be rotated to bring its non-working plank in contact with the teeth of mating gear. Okay, this is called as the backlash. Okay, so here we have seen the different terminologies. Okay, now let us see some of the errors. Okay, the sources of error which occurs in gears. So uh, there are three errors. Let us see one by one. First one is that is incorrect profile of the cutting tool. Okay, if there is not proper cutting, or you can say if there is not exact correct profile cutting of the cutting tool, then at that time this error occurs in the gears. Second one is if there is not correct position of the tool in relation to the work, at that time also the error occurs in the gears. Okay, and the last one is if there is incorrect indexing of the blank. Okay, that means wherever, as you know, the gears are manufactured on the milling machine. Okay, so when the blank is kept on the milling machine, and if the indexing is not proper, okay, whatever the number of divisions or number of teeth we want on that blank, if it is missed, that is if there is incorrect indexing, at that time there is errors in the gears. Okay, and there are so many types of error further, that is profile error, cyclic error, periodic error, runout, radial runout, axial runout, eccentricity. Also we have seen the backlash. Backlash, you can say in other words that it is the play between matching tooth surface. Okay, and that is caused by error in gear profile, pitch thickness of the teeth. So this is what you can see the terminologies. Now next we are going to see the types of gears. So here you can see the types of gear. So first is parallel shaft axis gear, second one is intersecting shaft axis gear, third one non-intersecting and perpendicular shaft axis gears, and fourth one is non-intersecting and non-perpendicular shaft axis gears. Now let us see first one, parallel shaft axis gears. So in these following types of gears uses, that is spur gears, helical gears, herringbone gears, rank and pinion internal gears. That means when there is input and the output shafts are parallel, at that time we uses these gears, that is spur gear, helical gear, herringbone, rack and pinion, and internal gears. When the shaft of input and output are parallel, the axis of the shafts. Okay, now second one, that is the intersecting shaft. Okay, if the shaft is shaft axis is intersecting, at that time the bevel gear uses, okay, as we know in the differential, okay, that is the to transmit the power at 90 degree, okay, or even though the angle may varies, but in differential this bevel gear uses, okay. And next one, non-intersecting and perpendicular shaft axis gear, at that time this worm gear uses, okay, non-intersecting and perpendicular. And here normally it is for the speed reduction. And the last one is non-intersecting and non-perpendicular shaft axis gear, that is the spiral gear, okay. So spiral gear uses where when there is non-intersecting and non-perpendicular shaft axis are there in the gears. Now let us see the diagrams. So this is nothing but our spur gear, okay, you can see the tips are parallel. Helical gear, okay, there is helix angle is provided in gear. Third one, that is herringbone gear. Next it is rack and pinion bevel gears to transmit power at 90 degree, okay. This is worm and worm gear, this is rack and pinion, this is internal gear. So these are the types of gear, and the next one is hyperboloid gear, okay. So if you see the further it is, there is based on the angle it is also classified, that is if you see the difference, okay, 14.5 degree composite system, 45 or 14.5 degree full depth involved system, this is not that much important, okay. So this one is important. So now we are going to see the tooth thickness measurement, okay. So let us see about it. Since tooth thickness is defined as length of an arc, it is not possible to measure it directly. There are various methods of measuring the gear tooth thickness, okay. As we know the tooth thickness definition, okay. So when we measure the thickness of the tooth along the pitch circle, then it is called a tooth thickness, but it is not possible to measure it directly, okay. So there are various methods to measure the tool thickness. There are following methods, that is measurement of tool thickness by gear tooth vernier caliper, that is by chordal thickness method. Second one is constant chord method. Third one base tangent method. Fourth one measurement by dimension over pins. So let us see first, that is by using chordal thickness method, that means by using a gear tooth vernier caliper, okay. So here you can see in this method the gear tooth, you can see the gear tooth vernier caliper, you can see it is quite similar to our vernier caliper, okay, but just there is small modification is in there, okay. Now let us see about this. The gear tooth vernier caliper is a measure is used to measure the thickness of gear tooth at the pitch line, okay. So the gear tooth vernier caliper consists of two perpendicular vernier arms with vernier scale on each arm. One of the arm is used to measure the thickness of gear tooth under test, and the lower end of the caliper jaws touches the sides of the tooth at the pitch line. The reading on the horizontal vernier scale gives the value of chordal thickness, that is W, and the reading on the vertical vernier scale gives the value of chordal addendum. These measured values are then compared with the calculated values, okay. So here what they are going to do, they are by using these jaws they measure the chordal thickness, okay, at the pitch circle diameter, but after that they are going to compare the with theoretical calculation. Okay, because the Vernier caliper itself is not reliable to closer than 0.05 mm, perhaps 0.025 mm with practice. Okay, so that it do not measure. And next, the measurement depends on two Vernier readings, each of which is a function of the other. And third one, measurement is made with an edge of the measuring jaw, not its face, which again does not lead itself to accurate measurement. Okay, so it exactly not gives the accurate measurements. So that's why after taking the value, it is verified with the calculated values. And how to calculate, here we see. Okay, so here you can see we are interested in this W. Okay, W plus H, we are interested in these both values. Okay, so here you can see the derivation. Okay, so here W is assumed as AB. Okay, and here you can see AD is there, so AB is 2 times AD. Okay, and the angle AOD. But before that, let us see. Consider one gear tooth. The theoretical values of W and D can be found out. Okay, so WA is a chord ADB. Okay, but tooth thickness is specified as an arc distance AEB. Okay, also the distance of D adjusted on instrument is slightly greater than the addendum E. Okay, so whatever the D distance is there, it is greater than this distance. Okay, so W is therefore called chordal thickness and is called chordal addendum. Okay, now let us see the derivation over here. Okay, so AOD, you can see O is here, AOD, so theta, which is equal to 360 by 40, T is nothing but number of teeth. Okay, and here we have seen W is equal to 2 into AD. Okay, but AD is nothing but what? AO sine theta. AD is nothing but AO sine theta. Now further we are going to see what is AO sine theta. AO sine theta, it is nothing but R sine 360 by 40. Theta, we know, we have written already over here, 360 by 40. Okay, AO is nothing but R is there, radius. Okay, so W will become 2 into R into sine into 360 by 40. Okay, here R is nothing but pitch circle diameter. But we know the module. What is module? Module is nothing but pitch circle diameter to number of teeth. Okay, so here radius is given, so diameter will become 2 times R upon T. T is nothing but number of teeth. So therefore R is equal to, we are going to transfer this T. Okay, on that side, so we will get the Tm upon 2. We will get the R's value is Tm upon 2. Okay, now this value we are going to put over here. So the equation will become R is equal to 2 into T into M divided by 2 sine 360 divided by 40. You can see over here. Now further simplifying this equation, it will become Tm into sine into 90 by T. Okay, so in such a way we got the values of W. Now we are going to calculate H. Okay, so let us see further. D is equal to OC minus OD. So here you can see D. D is nothing but OC minus OD. Okay, in such a way you will get the D. Now let us see further. What is D? D is nothing but, we have seen OC minus OD. What is OC? OC is nothing but OE plus addendum. Okay, and what about OE? OE is nothing but our R, radius. Okay, and plus addendum is nothing but M. Okay, so R plus M, and what about the R's value? It is nothing but Tm upon 2. Tm upon 2. So OD will become, OD is nothing but, here you can see OD. OD is nothing but R cos theta. OC we got Tm plus 2, Tm by 2 plus M, sorry. OD we got R cos theta. Let's just put the value of this R and theta into this equation. R is nothing but Tm by 2, theta is nothing but 90 by T. Okay, so here we will put this OC and OD value in above equation. This is what OC and OD. And after simplifying the equation, we will get this value. H is equal to M plus Tm divided by 2 into bracket 1 minus cos 90 by T. Okay, so this is what the value of this W and H. Okay, width and you can say the addendum. Now let us see the further, that is the constant chord method. So let us see about this constant chord method. In gear tooth collinear method, both the chordal thickness and chordal addendum are dependent upon the number of teeth. Hence, for measuring a large number of gears for set, each having different number of teeth, would involve separate calculations. Thus, the procedure becomes laborious and time consuming. The constant chord method does away these difficulties. It enables to employ one setting for all the gears having the same pitch and pressure angle irrespective of the number of teeth. Okay, the constant chord is defined as the chord joining those points on opposite faces of the tooth which make contact with the mating teeth when the center line of the tooth lies on the line of the gear centers. So this is what the constant chord method, okay, which is used for checking the gear tooth width. And the next one, that is the David Brown tangent comparator. Okay, so you can see the next. Okay, so here in this method of measurement of base tangent, a base tangent comparator, okay, this David Brown tangent comparator is also called as the base tangent comparator. Okay, so if you see, it consists of fixed anvil, okay, fixed anvil and a movable anvil, fixed anvil and moving anvil, you can see in the figure. The base tangent length is calculated with the help of formula derived, okay, with the help of this formula derived above, and this distance is set in the target comparator by slip gauges. For setting, first fixed anvil is adjusted to desired place by spacing collars put over here by spacing collar between the disc and the head screw over here, disc and head screw. Then movable anvil is adjusted having slip gauge combination between the anvils. Okay, this is a standard reference reading for the comparator. Now on gear span distance is checked and variation in the setting is read on micrometer dial provided on the device. Okay, and the difference between two readings gives the error in tooth thickness. This method is popular as compared to tooth calipers. Okay, because it uses only one micrometer scale. Okay, because in caliper case we were using the two vernier scales, but here only one micrometer scale is there, and has a better contact condition to the measuring device and the gear. So that's why this best tangent method uses to for the gear. Okay, now let us see the further, that is gear rolling tester is there. So here you can see. So in this method, first a master gear or standard gear is mounted on a fixed vertical spindle. So before that, first see the different components. So this is the, what do you say, the top view, this is front view. Okay, so if you see on the bottom the table is there, and on that the fixed adjustable carriage is there, and to this carriage the floating carriage is connected with the help of this calibrated spring. Okay, and further the dial indicator is there. And now on these carriages the gears are mounted. Okay, and if you observe over here, on fixed adjustable carriage the master gear is mounted, and on the floating carriage the gear is mounted which is under test. Okay, so this is how the construction is there. And if you see further, the electric transducer is connected over here. Okay, and it is connected to the electronic recorder. Okay, so such arrangement is there in Parkinson's gears test. Let us see the detail. First of all, in this method a standard gear or master gear is mounted on a fixed vertical spindle. Okay, it is fixed vertical spindle, the spindle is fixed. Okay, and the carriage is adjustable but the spindle is fixed, and the gear to be tested is mounted on another spindle. Okay, so the spindle of gear under test is attached to a floating carriage. The gears are mounted on two spindles so that they are free to rotate without measurable clearance. Okay, these gears are mounted in such a way that they are free to rotate without measurable clearance. These gears, okay, these gears are maintained in mesh. How? By using this spring pressure. Okay, these are free to rotate and they are maintained in mesh by using this spring. Okay, so due to this spring pressure they are in mesh. If spring loaded pair of gears in closed mesh are rotated, then any error will cause a variation in a center distance. Okay, that means if say that this is, we'll say the part which is manufactured, or they have said gear under test. Okay, let us say as it is gear under test. If it is exact size, okay, if there is no error consider the ideal condition. Okay, then whenever it rotates the standard, it is continuous rotate in contact with this gear. If there is no error, then there is no movement of this gear under test. Okay, this gears, there is no any movement in horizontal axis. Okay, and suppose if there is error, okay, if there is error, so if there is error, this will cause the movement of this floating carriage. This will cause to move this floating carriage, and as you know, the dial gauge is there which is connected to this floating carriage. So any movement of this floating carriage is indicated by this dial indicator which shows errors. Okay, so let us see once again working. Initially, by using gauge block spindle, okay, gauge block spindle set the dial gauge to read 0 at correct center distance. Also, we have to adjust the spring pressure and set limit marks on dial gauge. Okay, now after that, we have to mount the master gear and gear under test on respective spindles. That means you are supposed to adjust these things by using the gauge block. By using the gauge block, okay, the dial gauge is set to 0, okay, for correct center distance, and at that time the spring should be adjusted. First, by using gauge block, spring should be adjusted and dial gauge indicator should be set to the 0. And now after that, the master gear and the gear under test will be mounted on the respective spindles. Okay, and then we have to observe the variation. Then we have to rotate this gear and observe the variation in the dial indicator. Okay, if the readings are within acceptable limit, the gear is selected. Okay, otherwise it will be rejected. Now you can see along with this, a electronic recorder is there. It is fitted to the instrument. It shows the variation in central distance in the form of wavy circular chart. Okay, if there is variation, then it shows in a waves format, and if there is no variation, then it shows only horizontal line. Okay, and the accuracy of this Parkinson's gear tester is plus minus 0.001 mm. Okay, now next we are going to see the optical projection or profile projector. Okay, you can see over here profile projector. See the different components. First of all, so here you can see was to be inspected is kept between the lamp and the projection lens. So whatever the light which is emitted on the workpiece goes through projection lens, on mirror, and then on the screen. Okay, so in this what happens, the image, whatever the image is there, it is magnified by using this telecentric. Okay, this is produced by desired magnification. Okay, then it falls on the screen and then it can be measured. Okay, so in this, the light beam and the projection system, the small profile image is magnified and the measurement can be done by comparison, okay, where two-dimensional screw images are produced the desired magnification by keeping the object in the plane. Okay, so here on the screen, by comparing this the image, the gear is inspected. Now next, that is tool maker's microscope. Okay, so here we have seen in previous lecture also, but let us see once again. Okay, so in this you can see the diagram. Okay, and whatever the base is there, it is hollow is there. Okay, two micrometers are there for lateral and longitudinal movement of the table. Okay, so here you can see the supporting column, and to that supporting column the optical is it is attached with the help of this clamping screw, so that you can move up and down, and also on this optical head the eyepieces are there. Okay, so what happens, whatever the light is there, light from the lamp, okay, so here light falls on the mirror, then from the gear, okay, and then to the screen over here, it comes in an eyepiece. So in such a way, from lamp, here either you can say mirror or reflector, if the light falls on the reflector, then from reflector to the gear, and from the gear to the screen, so it can be viewed from the eyepiece. So in a such a way, gear measurement can be done. And let us see where this tool microscope uses. For the measurement of flank angle of screw threads, comparison of the master profiles, also measurement of pitch and effective diameter. For these applications, tool makers microscope uses. And the profile projector, where it uses for the inspection of form tools, profile gauges, press tools, gear teeth, gear hubs, screw teeth, thread gauges, tabs. For inspecting such tabs or screw threads, this optical projection element or profile projector uses. Okay, this is the profile projector uses. This is what the basic optical projection element is there. Okay, so here we are going to stop.